Welcome to the Darkstream, Vox Day, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. Welcome. It is Saturday, June 20th, I believe, and the light is a little bit odd. Let me see if I can adjust that a bit. It's kind of coming right at me. That should help a bit. See if that works. There, we got a little less glare. Hello, James. Good to see you. So tonight, I'm not going to talk at all about the Israeli-Iran war. There's reports of various things, B-2 bombers heading out to Diego Garcia and et cetera, et cetera. I'm just not interested in the speculation. We'll see what happens. We'll find out. There's so much bluster, so much disinformation, so much misinformation. I think it's really pointless to flatter ourselves into playing guessing games. So one thing we don't do enough on the Darkstream, and I think maybe we should do more, is discuss some of the material that we go over every day on Sigma Game. And Sigma Game has kind of taken on a life of its own. I set it up separately from VP, originally as Alpha Game, eventually as Sigma Game, because I didn't want it to completely dominate the conversation, because of the way that the people who are interested in those topics tend to be monomaniacs about the subject. They're not interested in books, they're not interested in war, they're not interested in economics or politics. They just want to talk about various aspects of intersexual relations, which is fine. That's the whole point of having an interest and a site dedicated to that interest, is it allows people to focus on it, discuss it. But the thing is that yes, Sam knows. What about me? What about me? The eternal question, the infernal question. That's why I stopped doing Alpha Game for a couple of years, is because it drove me nuts. I needed to age a bit, mature a bit, and come to the point where I'm a little bit better about accepting people and things the way they are. The older you get, the more you realize the absolute and utter futility of attempting to change anything about other people. You just can't do it. It's you can think about woulda, coulda, shoulda all you like, but at the end of the day, the only person whose actions you can control are your own. And so I think with Sigma Game, I'm able to be a little bit more patient, a little bit more understanding of the way that you have to let people go through the same processes over and over and over again. Does getting a Ridgeback make me a Sigma? Getting a Ridgeback would be more likely to make you a pretty blonde woman. It's definitely Space Bunny that drives the Ridgeback acquisitions in this household. I didn't even know what a Ridgeback was. The first Ridgebacks I'd ever seen were the day that we were picking up our first Ridgeback, Aziza, back in the day. And I quickly came to respect them and like them and love them. They're amazing dogs, absolutely wonderful dogs. But, they were definitely her thing. So anyhow, also you can see I'm sporting the Dorking Wanderers FC t-shirt. They had 3 big signings, including a central defender from the Maltese national team. So Dorking actually has an international on the team. That's pretty cool. More importantly, he's young, he's tall, and he's good. But anyhow, So I'm going to try, I made the commitment to stream more often, and I've been keeping my schedule of 4 streams a week, at least 2 dark streams, the weekly stream with Owen on Monday, and then the Archaven Nights with JDA on Thursday. But one thing that I haven't done is really begun to discuss some of the Sigma game stuff, which I do think we should, because a lot of the issues that we're uncovering through the discussions and the comments and the writing and the research has actually been very enlightening to me, and I suspect to most people. In some cases, it's confirmation of stuff that we already know, confirmation of the old wives' tales and old chestnuts and aphorisms that often come up with regards to male-female subjects. But in other areas, we've really been able to work out some interesting new concepts and really deepen some of the applications. Some of the stuff that we've figured out with regards to alpha empathy and delta narcissism has really been interesting and really been eye-opening. And one thing that I was thinking about today as a result of some of the recent posts is how much we as men, and to a lesser extent as women, tend to generate our own failures. Skydog says, I've learned a few new things, mainly from women being brutally honest. Yeah, I mean, some of the female commenters on Sigma Game are excellent. Julie C., Missy, I have no idea who these people are, but they're really good. They're able to separate themselves from their sex and make very useful and informative observations, Skydog says, and then your analysis thereof. Well, the advantage that I have is that in analyzing what people are saying is that I have a fairly well-structured framework that it's a lot easier to take this observation and that observation and plug it into a place where it puts it in context, it puts it in the proper context and then makes sense. Whereas if you're just looking at an isolated behavior, or if you're just looking at a behavior in isolation, it's a little bit tougher sometimes to figure out what's going on, right? But let me show you something interesting. Here's 2 interesting things. One is today it's up on Instagram, and the other one's going to be in a post tomorrow on Sigma Game. But I think you'll find it interesting. So we'll switch over here. Now, this was produced by one of our technical members of the community, and it's an experiment of AI with Hypergamouse. So I think it's early days, but I think that we're starting to get to an interesting point that we've been hoping to get to for a while. And this is the first sign that we might actually be approaching there.
Hey.
Hey, yourself.
I was just thinking.
Do you do that often?
Well, that is, I mean to say...
Cat got your tongue?
Look, do you want to go out with me or not?
Come by at 7 tomorrow night and find out, sport.
Now, that's pretty trivial, right? I mean, very short. It's just a 4-frame like daily comic, right? But what's really interesting about that is that it gives us the ability to put it out into other mediums. I think that we could probably take an entire section, turn it into maybe a 2-minute little video, and then it would actually be watchable, to some extent. Like I said, early days, and it's not, what the AI is doing is not very sophisticated yet, but we're getting there. And so I think this is really exciting, and kudos to the dev who put that together. Now this is something interesting. Somebody put up on Social Galactic today this matching thing. Let me see if I can find it. I have to figure out where I put it. ChatGPT has this new feature that people describe as looks matching. And I think it's really interesting and potentially very useful for people, because one of the biggest problems that we've observed from the complaints of both men and women is that a lot of people clearly have a problem correctly analyzing or correctly estimating their attractiveness to the opposite sex. There's this Omega, for example. He does a interesting blog called Omega's Journey. But what's really unfortunate is that he's determined. He thinks he deserves a supermodel. And it's like, dude, you're at the bottom of the barrel. You're at the very bottom of the totem pole. On what planet do you think that you're going to interest or attract someone like that? So this is what was posted on Info Galactic or Social Galactic. GPT will generate an image of an ideal partner based on your looks so you can stay in your league. Make a match for this guy now. And what it's obviously doing is you can tell from the features and stuff that it's basically kind of just taking your own features and mapping them kind of to the opposite sex. Now, but it's not just doing that. I know it's not just doing that because I did a couple tests with a couple different people, and it clearly wasn't just doing that. And so, but you can see, for example, if you're that guy on top, and an AI tells you, yeah, this is a reasonable match for you, that's very helpful. Yeah, that's extremely helpful. And just to give you an idea of how accurate it can be, I put a picture of myself in my 20s into ChatGPT, and I said, would you please provide me with an appropriate looks match for the man in this picture? It was just a candid shot. I mean, I would say it was probably a good picture. It's a picture I like, but it wasn't, it wasn't a big pose thing or anything. It wasn't like all, it wasn't like a photo shoot or anything. So it was a normal picture. And so what I thought was interesting was here was the result. Now, that actually looks like someone that I probably would go out with. Not the most beautiful, not the most striking woman that I would have ever dated. But I can honestly say that if I had met a girl who looked like that, I'd be interested, But here's where it gets really interesting, of course. I am known to prefer blondes, right? So I said, thanks, that's very useful. Could you please provide me with a looks match for the same man? And I said, the ages was early 20s because that was my age at the time. So would you please provide me with a looks match who happens to be blonde? Now check this out. Does that look a little bit familiar? Space Bunny's more attractive than that. But that is not a, here, let me, I'm going to modify a picture. see if I can get the right resolution here. This will take just a second, so bear with me. Okay. That's not, see if I can adjust it a bit. Doesn't really work. So. Alrighty. Hang on, we're getting there. Put this in the same folder. And so here is the woman that I actually married. Let's see. You guys have all, I mean, half you guys know what she likes, but yeah. You know, so Space Bunny is prettier, but that actually makes sense when you think about it, because I had some things going for me beyond my physical appearance, obviously. You know, if you come from, if you have some success, if you come from a wealthier family, et cetera, then you know, you can tend to expect to somewhat improve upon your looks matching. On the other hand, if you're unemployed and you don't have much going for you, you're not in shape, et cetera, you're probably going to, you know, go 1 or 2 points down from your match. But this is ChatGPT, which is Sam Altman's AI. I'm not saying that this is any sort of thing that you have to live by, abide by, but I think it's really useful in terms of helping you set your expectations. And if you're the kind of person if you're a guy who tends to kind of lack confidence, if you're the kind of guy who tends to not be a very good not be very good at understanding your level of attractiveness, you know, there's guys who underrate themselves too and underestimate themselves too. You know, if the AI says, hey, you know, this is what we would kind of consider to be in your zone, then that's a really useful thing, you know. Now, it's not something that an alpha needs. It's not something that a sigma needs. I mean, you know, with our natural confidence, you know, I expected that the AI would produce an attractive girl, you know. Why wouldn't it, right? But obviously it's not just kicking out attractive people for fun, you know, considering what it kicked out there. The reason that mine were black and white was the picture that I had happened to be black and white. What was the prompt given? It was very simple. It was just, please provide a appropriate looks match for the picture provided. The woman should be a white female in her 20s. I put in the white female just because, you know how, like, Bing especially is bad about, you know, throwing in ethnics given half the chance. And so you really have to learn to specify what the type is that you're looking to do. But I mean, you know, I do think that this is I do think that this is really kind of striking, in that it wouldn't surprise me if it worked with a lot of people. And because if you think about it, what does AI do? All AI really does is recognize patterns much better and faster than humans do. And so any pattern that we can recognize ourselves, AI is probably going to be capable of recognizing. You know, a friend of mine married a woman back in the day, and didn't go well over time. Things fell apart badly. They got divorced, and then he got married maybe 5-7 years later, something like that. And so he let me know about this, and he's a good-looking man. I wasn't surprised that he didn't have any trouble. He married someone who was probably 10 years younger. And when he sent me the email, my jaw dropped, because she was the second wife was a younger, not quite as striking or pretty, but absolutely dead ringer otherwise for the wife. I mean, she basically looked like the wife's slightly plainer younger sister. It was slightly creepy. And I mean, it was to the point where I didn't comment on it, because just drawing attention to it felt like it was a little bit striking a little bit too close to home. And so, if we are capable of noticing those patterns, because it's not just about preference. People talk about things as if it's about preference. It's not just about preference. It's also about who you are attractive to. And it makes sense that people that are attracted to you would tend to have things in common. Often, I think, driven by genetics. One of the fascinating things for me over time was discovering, usually after the fact, well after the fact in some cases, that the women that I had a particular attraction to, the women that I found particularly attractive beyond just the pure visual. And the funny thing was, there were one of two things that all of those various women that I considered to be just particularly unusually attractive had. They were either part Irish or they were part American Indian. Inevitably, one of the two. It's probably not a big surprise, that Space Bunny is part Irish. Because I'm part Irish and I'm part American Indian. Could be a coincidence, maybe, but I suspect not. And so I think that there's, in addition to whatever our personal preferences happen to be, which are probably driven in part by our genetics, right? I think that there's also a genetic element in who finds us attractive. And so, we know that, human attraction is complicated because we know at the same time that on the one hand, opposites attract. On the other, like calls to like. I mean, it's known to be bad news when genetically related individuals who had never grown up together, didn't know each other, they have a pretty strong tendency to be attracted to each other, which is one reason why it's really bad that families get split apart. So anyhow, Just interesting stuff there, but I think it's a useful thing. And if I was a single young man, I would absolutely and without hesitation give that sort of thing a try, because I think it's good to have a general idea of what a starting point for your league should be. You know, we see again and again how men who outkick their coverage end up in relationships with women that they can't handle, with women who lose their attraction to them and don't want to have anything to do with them. And not because of, postmenopausal hormonal changes or anything like that, but just, James says, I'm doing it now. Well, let us know. I mean, you don't need to send us anything, but if you're doing it now, give us a report and let us know if you think that it gave you an appropriate output, something that you think is credible. You might be pleased, you might be disappointed. I mean, I was a little disappointed that it didn't kick out the cross between Cheryl Tiegs and Morgan Fairchild or whatever. This oh dude, you totally settled. But I have to admit, being the least attractive of my four brothers, I was the only non-model in the family. And so, it was appropriate that, I would get like, pretty sevens, sevens that are on the high side of 7, which I think that's a reasonable rating for those two looks matches. But that strikes me as reasonable. If you'd ask me, where would a fair representation be, I would probably say, a 7 on the high side. Now, obviously, Space Bunny's more attractive than that, but like I said, there's other factors. The AI can only control the base, but the base is a good place to start. It's a good place to have an idea. The important thing for women to keep in mind is that there's different pluses and minuses for women than for men. So it's not about, in the case of women, what gives you a bonus is not about education, but it's more about, are you nice? Are you pleasant? Are you cheerful? Or are you disagreeable? Are you a pain in the ass? Do you bring stuff, are you a good cook? Or are you going to make them take you out to dinner every night? Men have a different metric for bonuses and positives and negatives. But it's just fascinating the amount of information that is at our fingertips now, and that we can make use of in a meaningful way that will improve our decision making. I mean, if this sort of thing helps 10 guys not get hopelessly obsessed and waste months and years of their lives on pursuing wildly inappropriate women who are never going to be interested in them, I think that's a great thing. For me, Cactus Eater Bear says, if you're going to be crazy, you need to be hot. Exactly. It's and also it's just like, for a woman, if you're going to be a slut, you better be hot, and you better be willing to settle when the time comes. We had a discussion on Sigma Game, and that's One of the things that women really struggle with is understanding the difference between SMV and MMV. Sexual market value, marital market value. Very, very high SMV doesn't translate necessarily into high MMV. And yeah, Sam says marriage market desirability for women does not equal brief sexual desirability. Precisely. And, every woman, not every woman, but a lot of women, a lot of attractive women have a choice. Do you want to cash in for 5 to 10 years and just have as good a time as you possibly can? Or do you want to invest in your future, keep your pants on, and make the best marriage you can? It's a trade-off. The problem is that all too often those decisions are made they're made without the woman realizing that she's making it. It's the curse of the short time the curse of the short time preferences. And it's not just involving sex. I mean, it's also the same choices apply to debt. You're much more marriageable if you've got a few $1,000s in the bank than if you've got $200,000 in college debt. You're much more marriageable if you are healthy and you've gone to the dentist once a year than if you are strung out on one sort of drug or another on a regular basis. Sam Perchansky makes a very important observation, and it's very, very, very important for guys to understand this. He says, same for men, I guess. Being a great Delta provider doesn't make you hot or fun. No, absolutely it doesn't. It makes you a good guy. It makes you a good catch. It doesn't make you attractive, and it definitely doesn't make you fun. The average Delta is insanely boring. And I'm a guy. I mean, it used to drive me crazy going out to the clubs with my Delta friends. And I mean, this was an exciting place at an exciting time. I mean, fantastic music, beautiful girls all over the place. I mean, you literally never knew who you'd run into. I ran into Prince like 5 times at this one place, and this wasn't even his club. And my friends, my Delta friends, literally never, I mean never, met a girl when we were out. It was a very rare night when I didn't get at least one phone number. And some of the guys that I knew, like the biggest player of all, the player of players, it was like we were talking once. It was he and his brothers owned the place, and he was just kicking back and looking around. He's like, I tell you, it's like living in a candy store. He was pretty happy. I don't know that I've seen his pictures on Instagram. I'm not sure it was the right choice in the long term for him. But at the time he owned the city, and you would never find him just sitting in the corner, hunched over the table with the beers, trying to gather up their courage to maybe try to go and ask one girl to dance before the end. Before the end of the, let's see, one of my looks match is on SG now. Bad Omega Posture. Her or you? Let's see if I can. I'll check this out. Social Galactic. That's not bad. I mean, the posture. Who cares about the posture? But yeah, I mean that's. I'll let me download this and then I'll pop it up. Hang on. Okay. So this is James's looks match. We'll go here. You know, that's not bad. You know, she's a, she looks, assuming that she's not overweight or anything, she looks like she'd be a solid 6. You know, but the great thing for you, James, is that that gives you an idea of what is theoretically appropriate. Don't be vulgar, Hawk. You know, I mean, I'll admit that would probably not be someone that I would have been interested in. But it certainly isn't somebody that I would describe as being plain or unattractive. You know, that's you know, you should be Omega Journey would have none of it. It's like, she doesn't look like the young the young Alessandra Ambrosio. Forget it. But see, this is real. I mean, this is realistic, you know, and it gives you a place to start. It gives you an idea of what you should be looking for. I made the prompt late 20s. Well, if you should make it whatever is appropriate for you. I would have, to be honest, just for kicks, I was trying to test whether it would do something that took into account other factors, or whether it's just looks. So I was going to try to do it with one of my. Here, let me check. Maybe they. Oh, I think I ran out of credits or something. Hang on a second. Let me see. But it might have given me the one. Okay. Oh, it did do it. Hang on a second. You guys have to see this. This is funny. This is what it gave me when I said, can you please provide an appropriate looks match for the man in the image? Please take into account high income, highly fit, and moderate success. Please provide your estimated female match with age 50s, blonde hair. And so this is what it produced. I mean, granted, she doesn't look particularly friendly, but you know, if you're looking, if you're looking mid 50s and stuff, as I am, I mean, for crying out loud, I'm actually, as much as I hate to admit it, I'm probably pushing late 50s now. I'll try it a bit more when I have some more credits. I'll try to experiment to see if it, if just doing the looks matching has any impact or something. But you know, that does. She's not very cleaned up. She looks a little bit haggard there. But you know, that's, you know, for a woman in her mid 50s to be that slender and that sort of thing, I mean, that's actually fairly appropriate for, you know, if you're a you need to specify her name is not Karen. She does look more than a little bit disagreeable. Let's admit that. But you know, actually, what I should do also is ask them to provide an image of what she looked like in her early 20s, just for kicks. But you know, but it's useful stuff. I mean, you know, it's very useful to give yourself a realistic perspective. And again, for me, I'm like, hey, I'm crushing it. Space Bunny looks better than that now. Bunny Bear says, the overweight girls with tattoos and nose rings are doing it for the fellas? It's so gross. I have no idea. I don't know overweight girls with tattoos and nose rings. You know, I always made it very clear to all of my children that that my perspective on tattoos is hope you enjoy sandpaper. You know, just because, you know, tattoos are just intrinsically déclassé, and just not something that you know, the way that I was brought up, that was just not something that you did, you know, unless you were special forces, in which case then it was barely acceptable. But anyhow, no offense if you have tattoos. I'm just saying. Bunny Bear says, Space Bunny is so nice to me. She is awesome. I love her spirit. I'm glad she's nice to you. But you need to be aware that she's also very capable of being very not nice when she decides. It's always a bit funny to me when people, you know, that they get to know us and stuff, and there's always this moment of dawning horror when they realize, wait, Vox is the nice one. But hey, you know, kinder, gentler Dark Lord. You know, that's what we're striving for here. Relentless positivity, and of course, total ruthlessness to our enemies. Nobody considers how those tattoos are going to look at 70. No, they don't. I mean, generally speaking, if you're getting tattoos, then you are probably oriented towards short time preferences. They do it for the same reason poisonous animals have bright colors, to give you fair warning. Exactly. You've been given fair warning. You know. Nibmeister says, have you seen the new Sigma Boy video by the two Russian girls? Nibmeister, what do you know about me and videos? I don't watch videos. It's not entirely true. It's not as true as it used to be. So thanks to Instagram, you know, I do see like those little clips from time to time. I actually have to admit, I particularly like this female author named Elizabeth Wheatley. I have no desire whatsoever to read her books, although it does strike me that she actually does serious research, which is cool. But she does this hilarious character called Book Goblin, and which is her, you know, her character. But she has conversations with Book Goblin that are just really funny. Tattoos are ugly to me on a metaphysical level. Yeah, I get it. Relentlessly ruthless to people who displease us is Bunny standard mode. Yeah, that sounds about right. Pillow Vendor says, so Sigma is even penetrating Russian culture. Yeah, I mean, this was a while ago. In fact, I think that the Sigma Boy thing is probably why the Daily Mail did the digging into it, discovered Sigma Game, discovered that I'd created the SSH, and then, you know, put up that piece on the male social hierarchy as renamed by scientists who discovered the new science. Nibmeister concurs and says the Book Goblin is awesome. Yeah, Book Goblin's hilarious. Yeah. I mean, I'm not amused by most, little videos and stuff, reels and whatever. And by the way, Space Bunny has seen all of them that has dogs or horses in it. I made the mistake once of saying, "Oh, I saw this funny dog video," and I gave like 2 words of description. She's like, "Oh yeah, blah 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 blah." I was like, "Wow!" So just as a test, I randomly picked a horse one, and watched it, and then said, "You've seen this horse video?" Yeah. Like, how do you get anything done? I mean, her knowledge of dog and horse related videos approaches the encyclopedic. I'm sorry, Pillavender corrects me. You're right, I am wrong. It's the Science Institute. The Science Institute that has discovered the new science of the male social hierarchy. So, kudos to them. Well done them. I really need to finish the Sigma Game book. I'm gonna particularly start focusing on that next week. I've just been a little reluctant to finish it because we keep coming up with so much great stuff on the site. I don't know how many of you actually pay any attention to Sigma Game, but if you don't, honestly, I think that you should from time to time, just because it's really turned out to, it's exceeded my expectations considerably. Nobel Prizes for all. Exactly. I mean, honestly, between creating the SSH and conclusively disproving evolution, you'd think they'd give me one. I mean, come on. The Science Institute of Scientific Science. I like it. I like it a lot. Although, it'd be good if we could work Scientology in there somewhere as well, just because. You've got, what, 3 AI novels in the works? 3? What are you talking about? 3? I've got like 6. I just haven't, I haven't finished any of them. I'm very close to finishing the short one, Death and the Devil. But the rest, yeah. They're all just kind of 50,000 here, 20,000 there. I did start a new one for those of you who are unaware. I started posting a new one on AI Central, and it's called Out of the Shadows, and it is a Midnight's War AI assisted novel. Little admission here, there's no AI in that first bit. There's no AI in the first 2 or 3 chapters. But don't tell anyone though, because it'll be interesting to see if anybody can tell when the AI takes over. Because what I prefer to do is, I don't like to train it just on my writing in general. I prefer to train it on my specific writing on that specific work. So that gives me better results. Kajia said, I'm waiting for the book as a distilled version for people not familiar with Sigma Game. I enjoy the ongoing discoveries and insights, but not everyone does. Absolutely true. I bought additional copy in the crowdfund for a friend for that purpose. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you did, and it will be worth it. So, and I have a new picture to show. It's not going to look that different to you from something you've seen before, but it's still, I think, worth taking a look at. Let's see here. What the heck? You know, I do organize my stuff, but just not very well. I mean, I literally emailed somebody today. Oh, here we go. This will do. So this is an even better example of the most recent products at the bindery. You know, you've seen, if you've seen this before, you can't tell the difference between this and the other version. In fact, the other version that I have right here. But you know, this is the Cambridge history of the Byzantine Empire, entirely produced at the Swiss bindery. The picture is a newer binding that was done. We're waiting to get the machine that will let us do the hubs. It should arrive this week. It's been shipped. It was supposed to be shipped 2 weeks ago. Our shipping guy had it all set up, and they go to pick it up, and they're like, "What? Why are you here?" I'm like, they're like, "To pick up that machine." They're like, "Oh yeah, well we thought we'd wait until we were done with this stamp that goes with it, and then send them together." It's like, we didn't want you to do that, you know. But anyhow, but they did finally ship it, and so we should have it next week. And so hopefully, end of next week, next weekend, I'll be able to show you a picture of one of these with hubs on it. And once we have confirmed the ability to do the hubs, then we can roll on the production. So, but you can see that the stamping is excellent. Now, part of it is the quality of the leather. This is the nice soft Spanish leather, you know, full grain cowhide, unlike the top grain cowhide from Italy that we've been using. And you're gonna love it, you know. And we just got our first big order of pigskin in, and so it's all coming. You know, I know it's been much longer than any of us thought possible, but you know, to do it right, sometimes it takes time. Anyhow, that's all I've got for tonight. So if you are a young single man or woman, or if you're an older single man or woman, I'd encourage you to go ahead and check out ChatGPT. See what it thinks is in your league. If nothing else, it gives you a starting point, and whether it helps you be more realistic or whether it encourages you to aim a little higher, it's all good. I'm Vox Day, and this is the Darkstream.